Hi everybody, and thanks for joining Stamp with Tracy for today's Well Wednesday. For our Well Wednesday today, I want to show you this awesome new stamp set called Vintage Christmas. And it goes along with Bottle of Happiness and uses that vintage bottle punch. And this is bringing the Christmas spirit into the stamp set. So they go together really well. So I wanted to use this today, showing you an awesome way to use the vintage Christmas stamp set along with your vintage bottle punch. So we're going to be using, again, the vintage Christmas stamp set, and it is on page 63 of the current July to December catalog, and it matches along with the vintage bottle punch, which is in the annual catalog on page 151. We're also going to be using a few other products today. We're going to be using the 2022 to 2024 in color glimmer paper, which we also used in the last Well Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to be using that. We're going to be using the 2022-2024 in color 6x6 designer series paper. We're going to be using that. Of course, we will also be using, as I stated before, the punch, the vintage bottle punch, and we're going to be using the bow punch that is also available. And we're going to start out with a card base, and our card base is 8.5 by 4.5. I'm sorry, yeah, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25. And then I'm going to be using a piece of that designer series paper. This is in the Parakeet Party. And I have a piece of basic white that is 3.5 by 4.75. And we're going to be using that. And then I have a scrap piece to punch out our bottle. I have a piece of glimmer paper, and this glimmer paper is also using the Parakeet Party glimmer paper. And this is 3.5 by 1.5. And then I've already went ahead and pre-cut a lot of pieces out of our bow punch, the sprigs and the little flowers, bow flowers. And I will be using those along with our multi-purpose liquid glue. So first thing I want to do today is I want to go ahead and add that glimmer paper. To the bottom of my 3.5 by 4.75. And to get that even at the bottom, I always just lay my paper standing up and then put that right in front of it. I'm just the slightest bit bigger, which is fine. I'd rather be too big than too small. So I'm just going to cut off that little bit of excess. And I'm going to give that just a second to dry. So meanwhile, while that's drying, I'm going to come back and stamp my bottle a while. Now, I chose to use the larger tall bottle, and I'm stamping that in the Parakeet Party, which is a new in color. And hold that there so it absorbs well. And then we will go ahead and punch that out. Now, if I didn't have enough cut off the bottom here, so I'll just trim the bottom to make sure that I can get this down. And this is where I like to use my Take Your Pick tool to help guide that between that and my fingers. that lined up perfectly. If I would have just made a bigger piece of paper to cut this out of, it probably would have been a heck of a lot easier. Sorry, I gotta get my head in here so I can see. Hopefully I'm not inside the camera. So I'm gonna punch that. Don't ever put your hand like this into the punch because it'll squeeze. So either set it down, grab it like this, and punch. So there's my cutout piece there. And now that this is dried, I'm going to go ahead and use the punch for that as well. So I'm going to center from left to right and bring this piece of paper down as far as it'll go. Trying to center from left to right as well. And again, punch. And this has got that glimmer paper in it, so it's a little bit thicker. And then you have a cool bottle right there you could use again. But now we've got that cut out, and we're going to take our bottle, and I'm going to put some glue dots on the back of it. Now this stamp set, I think, sells for $16. So I think it's a great little Christmas stamp set for a very inexpensive cost. So then I have my bottle that I'm going to not adhere to anything yet, because what I want to do is sort of have it in place here and then decide how I want to put my pieces. So while it's sort of just laying in place, I'm going to use my liquid glue. Just add a little bit of that. And I'm not going to put it on the stem because I may be cutting the stem off some. And I'll show you how I would do that after we get this laid out. I'll just go in that hole and cut that stem away. So this one I'm going to bring down a little bit lower. And then I'm going to use my tweezers. I don't know if you've seen in the July to December mini, we have a new embossing packet kit available, which I love. It has this type of reversible tweezers in it, which I think is awesome. I love reversible tweezers. So then I want to get that to adhere, which is another reason I really like using my liquid glue, because sometimes it's hard to get things to adhere to the glimmer paper. Just using my liquid glue. Got a little bit too much on there. See if I can wipe some of that off so hopefully it doesn't smear all over. And then I'm going to bring this one down just a little bit lower. Press that down to adhere. And then I have one more that was cut out of the Parakeet Party Glimmer. This was the Sweet Sorbet glimmer paper, the pinkish red. And then I had a little piece. Where do I want to tuck that? I think I'll tuck that up top here. And hold that down for a minute to glue. Get that underneath this one. Now this is where I'll come back in and I'll use my paper snips to just cut these little twigs off right here. It's not really that necessary because we're putting the bottle on top, but another sample that I'm going to show you, it would be. So then we're going to stamp, and you could choose to stamp on either side. You could have put your bottle off to the left or the right also if you wanted to. I'm going to stamp this little saying that also came in the stamp set. It says, "A very Merry Christmas to you." And I'm going to ink that up with my Sweet Sorbet. And I'll stamp that right there, a little bit of an angle. And now I'm going to go ahead and adhere my designer series, my white piece, to my designer series paper with my Stampin' Seal. Now again, this piece here was 3.5 by 4 3/4, and my designer series paper is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. So I'm just going to try and center that, top to bottom and left to right. And now I can go ahead and add my bottle with my dimensionals. And then we will adhere that to our card base. That is 5.5 by 8.5. And then I also think we could use a little bling. So let me think, which bling do we want to put in there? I think it would be awesome to use the iridescent rhinestones because we have that glimmer paper, and this will give us a little bit of glimmer on here. And I'll just do a few of the different size ones. And there we have that. Maybe just do a little bit up at the top too on the two little ones. I think I'll use my Take Your Pick tool for this. I think it's a little bit easier. And we'll just do 2 up at the top and 3 there. So you can just see that little tiny bit of iridescent glimmer. So a nice, simple, easy Christmas card. Very little stamping. Put together in 10 minutes or less. Very, very easy to do. Now I want to show you something else that I did. And on here, if you wanted to, it would be cool to add a little bow. Now, if you don't think bows look good because you're giving it to a male or something, then I understand that. You could just leave it off. But we will go ahead and add that to our bottle by using a glue dot. And this is the Parakeet Parade. I'm sorry. Parakeet Party Glimmer Ribbon. Woven metallic. It has a pretty little shine to it. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this comes in each one of our in colors. So this is the Parakeet Party one. And then I want to show you some other ideas that I did. One of the really awesome things that you can do with this bottle punch and bottle stamp set, Bottle of Happiness as well as Vintage Christmas, is order the little vintage bottle shaker domes. So if you can see this here, I did this the same way, except the only thing I did here was when I add my glimmer paper to my piece of white, my basic white. I added all of my little pieces of cutouts from the bow punch. And then you turn that over and you have your little bottle dome that has a sticky on the back. I'm looking for my box of those so I could show it to you. And they come 10 to a pack. And what you do is you take a piece of paper that you have your little, get these separated. So you've got your bottle punched out. You peel off the sticky. There's a little piece of white here. I don't want to pull it off because I'm not going to use it, but you'll see that. Then you place it into your cutout portion. Okay. Then you add your whatever you want to add to it. I happen to have these little snow puff things from a different kit that I had purchased, snowman kit, a while ago. So you would add your little sequins or whatever you want to add on here. Then you would peel this piece off and you add a piece of white scrap paper behind it. Or you could add it in the designer series paper if you wanted to have that look behind it. And this is what you would have if you use the designer series paper. And then you'd have your little sequins in there, like I have my little snow puffs in here. So I think they're just awesome. They add great dimension to a card, and it is still mailable. You would probably have to add a little bit of extra postage for it, but it's great for cards that you give to people if you're not mailing them, or even if you are mailing them and don't mind the extra postage. So these are the 2 cards that I made for today's Well Wednesday, and I'll show you just a few other ideas as well. I had made, this one is using the vintage bottles, both sizes. I inked this one up in Cherry Cobbler, and I stamped it on the white that is 4 by 5 1/4. And then I did not re-ink it and stamped it over here on the other side. And I did do my green in the spruce, the shaded spruce ink. I did that one first. And I did that one first so that I could sort of center it and then put my 2 pieces alongside of it. But like I said, I wanted a different shade here, so I just didn't re-ink. And then there's these beautiful little pieces here. Now these actually are made to go around this flower, as well as these little pine cones go around these flowers. So I wanted to have them coming out of my bottle. So I just took the little stamp and inked it up. And what I actually did on my, let's see if I can find one here. On my block, I took, when I laid this down, and brought this around almost as tight as I could without it flopping off. So when I went around the bottle, if you can see that, it gave me more of a closer tightness, where this was spread to be around the flowers. I just, as I said before, with these photopolymer stamps, sometimes you can manipulate them on here, and that's what I did. So I held it there and inked up and then stamped it around my bottles, which another little idea. Then I came back with another little stamp set that has the sprig with the hollies, and went around and filled in a little bit with those. And then after it was all stamped, along with my saying that says "Making Spirits Bright," I went ahead and ran it through the Eucalyptus mini embossing folder. Let me find that and show that to you. So it's a Stampin' Cut embossing folder, and it comes with 2 different pieces. And I used this piece here, and I just ran it through, putting it through my machine this way. And then, of course, it's just the piece of white there. And then this way, so you can see it coming up. And I flipped it over and did it again. So I don't know if you can see, it's actually embossed, and debossed. So I did do the debossing side first, where I ran it through this way, flipped my embossing folder over, and did the top and the bottom. Then I came back and did it top and bottom again with the Stampin' Up! Logo showing in the front. So I know it's very hard to tell, but you actually can see where it was debossed in here as well as embossed. So it really has a lot of textured background to it. Then I just layered that on another piece of basic white, and that was 4 1/4 by 5 3/8. And then I layered that onto a piece of shaded spruce, which was 8 1/2 by 5 1/2. Stamped the inside, a Merry Christmas to you. Again, stamped my bottles and added a little bit of sprig with holly. So there's one of the other cards I made. And then I wanted to use the flower part. So I went ahead and made one that said Happy Holidays along with the flowers. And this is with the Sweet Sorbet and the Parakeet Party and the Shaded Spruce and then the Cherry Cobbler for the holly. But as I stated, basically when you stamp this flower, you can line up this piece. See if I can find a good one to show you. That goes around the flower. It's a little hard here with my Happy Holidays, but it fits right in the groove of the flowers. And here it is. Here's where it goes. It's in between the two small flowers. And then what I did here was I just masked this, and I would stamp it with just this part inked up, and I would wipe this off, or I had this hanging actually off the side. So I inked, if you can see, I'm holding it down over here. I inked up this part, and I came back in, and I filled, after I inked it up, I filled in some spots where I wanted some more of the Parakeet Party filling in, and then came back with the Shaded Spruce ink and filled in. Same thing with the pine cones. They fit around that flower as well as doing the center dots of the flower. So I know it's difficult to see, but here's the stamp, and I find it easiest to line up the biggest dot inside and then it automatically lines up with the other two flowers. So since it's photopolymer, you can see what you're doing. So you just line up, get those 3 centers of your flowers, and then your pine cones stamp right around it. So it makes it so easy to make a nice full background, or just lining that up with the flowers. And again, I just didn't stamp ink on some of the parts when I came back and was just filling in. So I just wanted to share with you how much I loved this vintage Christmas bottle stamp set, and showing you all the beautiful different ideas of ways to make cards with it. So on my Wow Wednesdays, don't forget to like and comment to have a chance to win 2 cards from today's video. Again, like and comment. And here's my August host code link. And I will have that link available either in the video description at the top or down in the comments. So if you wanted to place an order, you could just click on that link, add your items to the order. Remember, it's still Celebration, so spend $50 and pick out a free Celebration item. There's that beautiful designer paper in there, the 6x6 that I used last week, with the silver and the gold, the hippo stamps, the hippo dies. So if your order is $100, you could actually claim the hippo stamps and the hippo dies as 2 of your free items to get those. Any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope you enjoyed today's Wow Wednesday. Don't forget to like and comment. Like and comment. Happy stamping, everyone. Bye-bye.